What is up, guys? Welcome back to another training edition. So we are on a push day today, and today's training session we're actually going to do a chest focused push day. So each time we do one of these sessions we're going to slightly change the focus somewhat to give you some ideas on how to do things. The previous session was kind of like a generic push video, and then today's training session we're going to alter the exercises somewhat and we're going to explain why we're doing them. So in the last push session we did a low incline Smith, which is a great exercise. However, if you have a weak chest, using a movement like the prime incline that converges, and what that means is that it's bringing your upper arm to the center line, is going to build a better chest always. There is absolutely no doubt whatsoever that if you're just locked into one plane and you're moving here versus being able to come to the middle and fully shorten the pec, well, yeah, you won't fully shorten the pec on a press, but at least have some converging aspect, it's going to stimulate way more chest fibers. So immediately, if you have a weak chest, be using something that converges. So if you don't have a machine that does, the next best thing, or even potentially an even better thing, is a dumbbell. The dumbbell, the low incline dumbbell press is a perfect movement. If you cannot build a good chest from that, then you're going to, in general, struggle to build a good chest. Whereas if all you've been doing is using machines like a barbell where you're locked in and you haven't built a great chest, it's kind of understandable because there's a lot of other things that could be taking the brunt of that weight. So we're going to start with a movement that converges. Now for our overhead press machine, we're not going to use something that is a direct overhead press movement. So like something like the prime shoulder press or the hammer strength shoulder press or a fully upright positioned bench on a barbell or a dumbbell or a Smith. They're no good. You need something that's a high incline, something that brings in the whole upper shelf. Now, I do actually believe that this trains the front delts better too as a whole. I think a direct seat position is generally no good. And I talked about that in the previous chest video. In that I said with the shoulder press machine that the prime isn't the best because it doesn't converge and it's in an upright position. We're going to do a high incline Smith. Might not be the very best movement. I would say the very best movement for this would again be a high incline dumbbell press. And the reason for that is the converging component. But when we're talking about at least just bringing in the upper shelf, having something on a high incline is going to at least allow you to stimulate those fibers. So we know our first movement is something that converges, our second movement is something that is on a high incline as opposed to a complete upright press. Now for our tricep movement, if we've got a weak chest, I believe what fills in the gap here is a dip. And I think that when you're moving your own body weight through space and you're going deep into the stretch, you're going to fill all the gaps when it comes to chest training. You're going to, again, build great arms from this movement. The dip is probably the best tricep exercise that exists. But when we think about those three exercises as a whole, the converging aspect, the high incline aspect, and the dip, we now have used three compound movements that target all aspects of the chest, which means it's very hard to come away from that session without stimulating the chest as a whole. So that's going to be our approach today. And then we're also going to add in a little bit more chest volume on the isolation movement. So we're going to go up a touch from baseline volume to then add the work onto the weaker area. So before you guys saw us just do 2 sets of each compound movement and 2 sets of each isolation movement. We're going to just add some work into the chest area for the isolation movement because it's the area that we want to target. And the reason why we're able to do that today is just that Corin and I have slightly less work this week in general, just because we have like a couple less training sessions outside of the gym, which means then we can increase our gym work because our volume that we do is always reflective of our recovery capabilities and our work that we're doing as a whole across the week. Like I've explained multiple times in the other videos. So if this is the first video you're watching, I advise watching them all because you're going to pick up a lot of the ideas that we kind of focus on in terms of larger concepts. And then just a small update because we kind of talked about it in the last one. Corin competed at the weekend. Yesterday. If you want to kind of fill anyone in on that.
Yes, it went well. I did gi and no gi and won both of them, so that was cool. Good overall performance in general. Picked up a few things that I need to definitely work on that were glaring weaknesses from the matches. No gi felt tremendous. I just take to that a little bit better, I think, because it's a bit more athletic and a little bit less reliant on technique, and that's me being honest, because at this point my athleticism and strength supersedes my jiu-jitsu technique and ability. So and that's also where my interest lies more so as well. I just enjoy it more, simple as that. Like, I don't get as much enjoyment from gi training or competing as I do from no gi, so I feel that's where I kind of fit and where I want to progress more. So obviously a very successful day, but I think from going forward I'm not going to compete in the gi again, because I do currently 3 hours of gi training a week, but if I'm not loving that as much as no gi, and that's where my longer term aspirations and goals lie, why am I using those 3 hours to train in it? I'm just not. I mean, obviously there's a lot of crossover, but specificity, you know, I'm not a spring chicken. I am 33 years old, and if I want to progress any more in what I'm doing, then I don't have 3 hours a week to be wasting. And I say wasting because I don't feel like I've wasted those hours, but going forward I think they could be better spent on more no-gi work, or more wrestling, or just generally more martial arts or training in general. So then the next competition is 2 weeks from now. Is it 3 weeks?
3 weeks.
3 weeks from now.
No-gi British champs.
Yeah, no-gi British champs, beginning of December. So that'll be the last comp of the year, and just a no-gi competition. So I've got 3 weeks ahead of me to specify on some bits that really need to work on, and then we'll just see what comes with that one. But yeah, really good day yesterday. I'm feeling fine, but as the day goes on, I'm like, oh, that's aching a bit. Got a few aches in here and there, because in the moment you don't, you realise what's being pulled about or yanked about, and then 24 hours later you're like, oh yeah, I did something. So yeah, we'll see. I don't think it'll impact today. But we'll see. But yeah, feeling good, feeling happy, feeling excited, feeling very focused on the goal. So just onwards and upwards, lots to learn, but good day.
In terms of like the specificity aspect, it's so important, guys, that you're training specific to your goals. And again, we've mentioned this in a few videos, but like Corinne's larger goal is next year to be doing her first MMA comp and getting as many MMA comps in as possible, and then finding out where her ceiling potentially could be with MMA. Like, I mean, we're very aware as a 33-year-old, we're so realistic because we've done so many competitions over the years. We understand high-level performance. Yeah. We really do. We're not.
It might be a different sport, but it's the same principle across any.
In the sense that, as a 33-year-old starting martial arts, you're going to run into your ceiling when it comes to like MMA quite quickly, sadly. In the sense that you're never going to beat someone that's been doing this since they were small. You're just not. It's just not realistic. However, with that being said, when you are unbelievably dedicated, like Corinne is, and already possess huge levels of strength and power and athleticism like Corinne does, you can make some pretty good headway. So that's just what we're going to have a shot with and see where you go. Like, Corinne has competed at the top in 2 sports already. We're not stupid enough to think that she's going to be able to get to the top in martial arts with this crack, but it's definitely something that you're enjoying and you can have a good crack at. So yeah, getting out of the gi and then doing more Muay Thai, doing more boxing, doing more wrestling. So like for the next 3 weeks into this no-gi one, like, we've got a great wrestling coach, and I messaged him this morning and I gave him a recap of kind of Corinne's wrestling from the weekend. Which is and just said that we got some work to do in the next 3 weeks. Yeah,
and it would be. I've had 2 lessons, so let's be realistic here.
But that's not true, because you've done a lot of wrestling throughout with Ronnie as well.
Yeah, but specific.
Wrestling.
Not done a lot of the grand scheme things, but so we're just going to see what unfolds, and obviously, like we said, very realistic. Yeah. I'm not expecting to be top end of the game or anything like that, but it's what I want to do and it's what I enjoy. So I'm going to see what I can do over the next few years until either my mind says, nah, I can't be bothered with this anymore, or my body says, chill the shit out. We'll see what breaks first, really. It'll probably be body rather than mind, but who knows.
The take home from us that we want to always, because we always want to deliver a take home. So like when we talk about ourselves, what's important to understand is that we're not just trying to tell you about ourselves.
No, I don't.
Because that's not the goal of the message. No. The goal of the message, the goal of what we're trying to do is to tell you about ourselves, but then kind of reinforce the idea that if you take a similar mindset, you'll be very surprised as to what you can achieve. Very surprised. And that's just our outlook on life in general, in that we truly believe that if you really push, you're not going to be world champion, because there's a huge genetic component to that. That can't be denied. However, you can get a seat at the table amongst the best 20 in the world. That I 100% believe. If you don't make mistakes, you don't get injured, and you really, really, really give it your all in any discipline, you can get a seat at the table. But that's very, very, very hard to do, because we're talking astronomical dedication. But like for the last 6 months, 8 months, for Corinne, she's been doing 2 to 3 sessions a day, 6 days a week, no problem. So what the equivalent to like a full fight camp for MMA fighters, she can do absolutely no problem year round without any issue. So when
I want to.
When you have that mindset, you can make unbelievable progress compared to normal people. It's a very hard mindset to understand. It's a rare mindset, but Corinne has that. She's proved that in her other disciplines so far. But we do genuinely. We probably sound crazy to people that haven't followed us before on the site. They just maybe have thought, what the fuck are these two now talking about martial arts for? Because neither of them have a clue what they're talking about. And we don't. We're not pretending to. It's a blind leading the blind. But I can tell you now that we absolutely understand how to achieve high levels of things.
And we found coaches that do know what they're talking about.
So when you have that understanding, I promise you can do anything. You can do absolutely anything you want. So use that, and again, don't let anyone tell you what you can and can't do. It's going to be a constant reoccurring theme you hear on these videos from me. Don't ask for permission for anything. Don't anyone tell you what you can or can't do. If people kind of get in your way and try to hold you back, tell them to fuck off. Like it's going to be a game changer for you in your life. If you're surrounding yourself with losers, you're fucked. You need to surround yourself with either people that have the same mindset as you, or you're going to have to be a loner if you can't find that, because there will be a period where all of a sudden you aren't going to be able to get yourself in those circles around high achievers, because they don't know who you are and they're not going to talk to you. You're not going to be able to just be their mate, no matter how hard you try. So don't do that as well, because it's weird. But all of a sudden, when you are starting to really show your worth in terms of how hard you work, you'll be on their radar. Because I can name the people in the UK bodybuilding world that train hard. I talk about them quite often. And they would never have come onto my radar if they didn't train hard. But all of a sudden, if they message me at any point, I will always reply and talk to them. Always. I'll always have time for them. So then all of a sudden, they've worked their way into a circle of people that have the same mindset as them. And they didn't do that by trying to be your mate. No. They did that by just cracking the fuck on.
It's a bit like I'm turning up for these classes week in, week out, and I'm not good. I can't strike properly, but you know, the coaches and the people in the room that are already competing in MMA and are incredibly experienced, they now, after 6 months, have seen that I've turned up every single week, and they give me their time. So they don't just think, oh God, what's she doing here now? It's like, you know, you have to earn the respect from other people, and you can do that not by being great at what you do at first, but you can do that just by being respectful and working hard and turning up consistently, and then all of a sudden they do know that you're worth it, and then they'll push you to be worth it eventually, and that's just the way it is. So don't be weird and creepy, just work hard.
One of the biggest things that we really drive with our circle of people is making them believe. Like you'll see this a lot from my friends that post about me, is that I make sure that they believe. Because I believe. Like, I know, I can tell from their mindset and their attitude that they've got what it takes. They don't necessarily believe themselves, but I believe. And then when you're in those environments, you're going to flourish. So if you're surrounded by people that have this mindset of, oh, that's not doable, or what's the point in doing that? You need to get away from it. It's going to be poison, and it will hold you back in everything that you do. It's so important that you're either surrounded by people that have that mindset, or you are on your own until you are brought into the circle of people that have that mindset. Because like I said, you will be brought in. You will be. I can guarantee it. Because that shit excites the people that have that mindset. Like I see fucking videos of like Keithy West deadlifting, and I'm just like, that's fucking sick. I love it. I just like, or I see videos of like Michaela training, and I'm just like, yes, amazing.
I think she's already at her weight.
Yeah, no, I know, but it's just like, but it's just that idea. Like, I couldn't even help it. No, but the point is that what they do is so exciting to people that also have that idea. So that was my point was is that my point was is that you will be brought into those circles.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, and you will all be having those chats. But so like I said, don't be afraid to step away from fucking losers and be a complete loner for a year. Like, if you're Billy No Mates for a year and you're just cracking on your own, great. You've got no one to hold you back, you've got no one to slow you down. But that's just not a bad thing, okay? So yeah, that's like our little take home from that. Let's crack on with this. Hope you enjoy the session. First set when you're using the prime, I've discussed this a little bit before. I want to do a 60-40 split in terms of middle and top when you're using it fresh. Now, if you're doing like a pre-fatigue with a pec deck before, I'd probably change that more to a 50-50 or even less, and then having 60-40 top to middle. But when you're starting and it's your first movement, 60% middle, 40% top. Now that's kind of my preference. 40 split, 3 plates middle, 2 and a bit plates top. When I progress this, in terms of adding my biscuits, I add it to the top, just because at the moment, that midpoint is kind of a progression wall for me. When I've got 5 plates total, I know that I can keep adding to the top and eke out progress, because that strength in the short end isn't going to limit me. The strength in the short end is what's going to limit me. So my goal here is just to triple.
Still
set, again, I think I may have done this on a video already. So same thing now, second set, I've taken some of the weight off the middle, gone to the top. Didn't bother going for it because it would have taken everything out of me and I would have missed the rep as well. And then I've got more work to do, but I can feel, I always know on that last rep when I'm getting closer to being able to take the next one. But when it's pressing this early in the session and I don't know that I'm going to get the rep, I don't do it. Because when I think that I've got 6 sets of pressing, I want my pressing to be awesome across all 6 sets. I don't intend to blow my load entirely on just one rep that I may or may not get. That's always been how I've done it, because I want to move the most amount of weight for the most amount of reps across all of my presses and sets, all my press sets, okay? So that doesn't mean leaving reps in the tank, because then that would be not getting the most amount of reps or the most amount of weight, but it's not missing reps and using that energy. As my absolute favourite high incline press is the dumbbell, and I would be doing this right now with the dumbbell if I had spotters to chuck the dumbbells up. So if you guys want to look back to kind of like 2017 videos of me, there are some on the old YouTube channel of me doing this angle with 85 kilo dumbbells in each hand, but you need someone to pass it all the way up. I remember a really wicked session that me and a lad called Kieran Driscoll did. It was a client of mine for a really long time. When we came down, we had some great high incline pressing session. That was a lot of fun. And there's another really good one with me and James, where we were then doing high rep sets. And I think we had, I want to say we had like the 50s or the 55s. And it was a back off set. And then James got 20. And then I only got 19. And I went for the 20th and I couldn't lock it out. And then there's this moment mid-rep where I've got it and I realise I'm not going to get it. And I just shout, fucking God! Just throw them down because he beat me. So yeah, that's the absolute one. But because we don't have, I can't, because I'm still going to do probably 3.5 plates a side. There's still 70 kilos in each hand. It's just, unless you've got passers, it's just not practical. Wastes so much energy. So, don't get me wrong, Corinne's strong, but she's not as strong as she was. So her passing up those dumbbells is not happening anymore. But I know what you did do. that last rep there for Corinne, there was just 2 cues that I gave her just to remind her, use the bench and use your legs. So what we're doing there is we're just creating maximum stability. You're not using your legs to lift the weight, you're not using the bench, but what she's doing is that she's creating a huge bracing effect that then allows her to use her strength. And then this is one of the benefits that the Smith does have over a dumbbell, in that you don't have to stabilize, you don't have to think about balance, you just got to push the weight, and that makes a big difference.
We ordered different drinks.
Again, I mentioned this slightly in another session, that when you're looking to add volume and you have a block of movements that are all push movements like we have today, I feel like the first edition of a compound set comes on the 3rd exercise. The reason for that is it doesn't take away from any of your ability to progress or skew your lift progressions on your previous sets. And then with logbooking numbers, we don't want to like add something to the first exercise, because then we know that that's going to interfere with our 2nd and 3rd movements. So that's just how I like to do it. I always like to add volume to my last compound piece. So in this instance, we're going to add a 3rd set to the dip, and I'm going to go up now, and this will only be like a 2-rep set. Like a lot of my reps as well are really heavy, my reps are low, because my main focus is strength, and also I'm refinding some numbers, just because I've really not done very much weight training at all. Like I said, like I didn't do any push work for a month. I'm back doing that a lot more now, just because I kind of forgot how much happiness that brings me as a whole. And with anything in life, just do what fucking makes you happy.
Bell first, yeah?
we'll do something that's like a 5 to 8 rep, then we'll go slightly heavier and then we'll back off again. The goal here is just, with chest hypertrophy in mind, it's just perfect contractions. Chest isolation move. If you're in a situation where you're in a calorie surplus, you've kind of like really maxed out your straight sets in terms of like your hypertrophy stimulus, this would then be the moment where you would add potentially a rest pause or a drop set, where you're then trying to accumulate more effective reps. This isn't a tool that you use in a calorie deficit, in a cruise, or prior to having a really good run on your straight sets. This is a tool that you use when you have done all of those things and there's an area specifically of a body part that you're still trying to bring up through an off-season period, and then you hit it with this kind of stimulus. Like when I see guys just doing drop sets all over the place, you don't even know why you're doing that. You're just doing it because you think you should. It's something that needs to be utilized under specific circumstances. So like I said, today is a chest focused day, and it's a day that me and Corinne are potentially in a higher state of recovery. Use it wisely. Like if I wasn't doing this video just as a demonstration, I wouldn't actually do this at all today, because it isn't just about day-to-day recovery, it's about like recovery over a large period. And right now, I don't have the actual ability to build any muscle, but I want to use this as an example of to show you when to utilize this intensity technique. So what I've done, and again, how I like to do this, is I then actually like to go even heavier, okay? Which I don't necessarily always advise. Sorry, that's really loud, guys. Corinne's gonna turn that down a bit. I don't know why it's just carried on getting louder. So that last set was a treble, and I'm actually gonna start now on a double. Maybe don't do that. That's just how I like to do it, because I like to get hold of something very, very, very heavy for my first one. Just because for me, when I'm constantly trying to drive strength, if I'm exposing myself to those kind of loads, that has great crossover to all of my pressing movements. And my body's really, really used to this kind of thing. And my connective tissue is useless. And remember, although this is only a double, this is no way near as heavy as like my body has lifted. So my connective tissue shouldn't really take much of a beating from doing this. But just be mindful. Maybe don't go quite as heavy on these situations. So this is gonna be a triple drop set. Before, when I was pushing for more chest improvements, maybe this time last summer in 2021, was I sometimes even do like 4 drops on this, but I would favor this more on the prime pec deck, where you can adjust the resistance profile, so then it does drop off in the short. Because what you're going to notice is all of these sets, the part that's going to be really, really hard to get is the shortened part, just because this is an even resistance profile and we don't have much oomph in the short now. But we're rotating exercises,
So we have 2 sessions because progression isn't going to come easy to us. And again, I kind of mentioned that in the last video I did, that when you're like in a cruise or you're off anabolics or you don't use anabolics at all, you're going to need more rotations of exercises because progressions are going to come harder. Okay, so you don't want to just stall out on a movement too soon. Spot. A little less. Cool. In that last rep, just a little help shortening the rep, just because again the resistance profile lends itself to it. So with a session like this, if you're progressing your lifts week to week with this kind of volume and intensity, and you can't build a chest whilst in a surplus, do something else. Do a different sport. It's impossible. It's impossible not to build a better chest. Impossible. So, like, even if you're not great at creating that internal stimulus, like if you're just getting stronger on these movements and you're taking your body weight up, your chest is gonna be awesome. First set.
This was strong, and use my head alongside my heart. So take my splash, to fix my eye, and tether my
only a small kind of 1-ish or a 1 count contraction in the short. Pause in the contraction part. Set 3, guys. No pause in the contraction, just get it short. So for me, I've always been able to kind of chuck these reps around a little bit, and it never limited my shoulder hypertrophy. Like, I was able to build really, really good shoulders. For you might need to kind of lock in a little more, or you might not. You need to kind of have to play with your form and see the results that you get. But I'm definitely able to take slight liberties with what will look like my form, and it yields really high internal stimulus for myself. And so you're going to need to learn. So again, like, some of you might be watching and be like, oh, I don't like that shoulder form. If you build great delts from it, then it's great. If it doesn't work for you, then it's not, okay? So remember that's why you're doing that. You're doing that to build good shoulders. So if you criticize someone's form that's built good shoulders from doing it, you're a fucktard. So that's what you've got to remember when it comes to form. Internal doesn't always equate to, external stimulus doesn't always equate to internal from person to person. If someone doesn't understand that their form is loose and that someone else needs tighter form, equally that's silly that I know on this, I'm a little loose with this. And I probably wouldn't advise people to be as loose as me. But hey, maybe you can be. Look, if this was a shoulder focus push. So what I would then favour is starting with a lateral variation, and I'd probably just do a couple of sets. I wouldn't do too much because I still want to save all my oomph for my overhead pressing. A couple of sets of a lateral, and doing that something that more overloads in the shortened position. So you might do a dumbbell, or you might do like I did on the first set where you just do it for a 2 count. Then your first pressing move would be your high incline press. Then your second pressing move might still be like a mid incline press. So then you're really hitting your shoulders in a lot of those movements. Then after that, you would then do whatever is kind of your next weakness. It would probably then still be a tricep move, just because you've done 2 press moves that incorporate enough chest. But you could still actually then do a tricep move that also biases the shoulder. It's not one that I would necessarily advise because you're not going to have that underdeveloped shoulders compared to your chest and your triceps. But you could also then do back on another high incline press and do it with a really tight elbow grip. Okay, so then it's like a narrow grip shoulder press. But realistically, it's going to be a tricep compound move at that point. Then after that is where you come back to a lateral again prior to your chest isolation and your tricep isolation, because you want to keep focusing on the areas that have the attention for that moment. And then that's where you do kind of the sets that we're doing now, but the last set would be where you would add your drop set or your rest pause in the same way that we did the chest session. So at some point we'll do that session for you just to show you again exactly how that looks and feels. But so this is today's chest focus push, and then that one would be a shoulder focus push. And you would select your push sessions based on your areas of weakness. Last movement will be our tricep isolation movement, and for us we're going to get on the dip machine, but the reason again why we're doing that specifically today is because this is a chest focused session. So like I said, with the tricep compound move that you could do for shoulders, tricep compound move you do for shoulders, you can take a narrow grip, so you're still putting in some shoulder. With this one we're choosing the dip machine. Although this is like our tricep isolation, it still then has crossover to chest. So this is how you bias your weaknesses with your exercise selection. So it's not then that you need to do more and more volume, because we know that more volume doesn't equate to better results, just equates to more fatigue. We narrow down our exercise selection to bias our weaknesses. Today's a Monday. We'd have wrestling after this, but our wrestling coach had a tattoo at the weekend, so it's been moved to Thursday for this week. So just lifting today, because usually we finish up this session and then literally we time it, so the moment we finish, our wrestling coach is called Chris rolls in, and then we get going. And we fed back from the weekend with kind of Corin's wrestling on areas that we're gonna work on. And then I'm in the wrestling sessions just because it's fun. It's really fun. Really hard, like learning how to actually wrestle is hard. If you've never done wrestling, shooting for takedowns is technically a lot harder than you think it would be.
It looks easy, but
Yeah.
it's just 'cause they're really good.
They're really fucking good. Being able to level change and technically shoot on a single leg or a double leg or a high crotch, and understanding your head, your shoulder, your arm positioning, your grips, your body weight, your balance, your distance. But there's a lot.
I look like a potato.
Yeah, it's hard, it's very hard.
But I want Jordan to be my training partner, obviously.
If she can shoot on me, then she can shoot on a girl that's like 60 kilos. So, but the only thing is, genuinely though, we need a crash mat, because one thing that we've realised is that when you're practicing your shooting, that unless you're 100% doing it like you would do, I think, in a match, I don't think you can get the right feel for knowing, like connecting that mental ability to really explode into the shoot. So, because we've been drilling it a fair bit and we know how to do it, but then like there's knowing it and then there's really committing to the shot. Like you're gonna like blow through this person. It's different. I think you kind of learned that at the weekend, didn't you? So, got a bit of a black eye. Yeah, a little bit.
There's this bit.
Yeah.
That's a chest that I might read.
No, but
No,
yeah,
it's a
yeah.
chest.
A little bit less.
Let's go.
You're gone away. I wish you disappeared. All this life is supposed to you. Now it's time.
Again, if you're going to add work to the area of weakness, so chest, this is where it's going to go. So yes, this is our tricep isolation move, but we pick something that also pulls in the chest, and then this is where we add our additional work. And the fortunate part about this one is that we can also adjust the resistance profile. So on another tricep machine, or another tricep exercise, you're not going to be able to do that. So when we fatigue for our third set, we can put it on setting 3, and it drops off in the short, and we get loads more stimulus. So this is why we like to do this as our tricep isolation move. So if you're doing a dip, and you're doing a dip machine, your triceps are going to get a boatload of stimulus, a boatload. If your triceps aren't still coming up from those movements, then yeah, for a tricep focus session, then it's going to look different. It's going to probably look at the very first movement of the session you do is a dip. And then the second movement you do for a session might be a narrow grip press. Both still chest movements, but they bias to tricep. And then your third press would then probably be an overhead press, because it would make sense to still train the shoulders. And then the first movement of your isolation would then probably be back on the dip machine again. Or it might be a push down variation. And then you might revisit the dip for the third of the dip machine as then the last movement you do. So the take home is that the weakness is always the first movement that you do. So chest focus session, something that converges. Shoulder focus session, a lateral. Tricep focus session, a dip or a narrow grip smith. And then the additional work gets added to that body part. You don't add work then to the body parts that don't need it, because then the session is going to be massive. You just want the focus going to the weaker areas. I just adjusted the resistance profile now to setting 5, just so it's a bit easier to get short. Last kind of set, and again, areas of weakness that we're targeting for the session is the chest. So this is where the drop set's going to come in. So I'm going to do something that's really heavy for the first one. And the advantage of this one is that the drop off and resistance profile means that when I do the drop, I can kind of maximize the failure point more so, which is the limiting factor when you're on the cable. So when I was doing it a lot last year, I was kind of sticking on just the pec deck from session to session. But my progressions were coming faster because I'd really added 700 milligrams of Primo, and my baseline test was 250, so it wasn't even a legit TRT, it was like a sports TRT. So like on that like 950 total, you can really progress a fucking shitload, like an absolute shitload.
That'll become a new thing now.
No, that already has, like loads of people, yeah, people have been using that phrase a lot, sports TRT, or bodybuilder TRT. But it makes a big difference. The difference between 250 tests and 150 tests is a fucking lot. Because like when I was like lowering mine, coming down to TRT, like I was at 250, and when I lowered to 150, I was like, whoa, this is a big shift in body composition. I was like all of a sudden like, wow, like really noticeable. And then when I went from 150 to 75, when I was being lazy with my shots, really fucking noticeable. And then that didn't really help that I was barely lifting any weights either. Just turned into like, I thought I looked like a melted candle, like that was my description. It's the worst I've ever looked in my life, I think. And then now I'm like, okay, I enjoy this way too much to stop doing this. So, back doing this again, properly.
Reshaping the candle. Yeah. It was a wax melt.
Nice job done, guys. Hopefully that was a useful session for you. Any questions? Please ask.